My name is Scotland Willis. We're here with Green Network News, and we're at a construction site here in Roxbury, Massachusetts, which is located in Boston, to talk more about construction, green networks, green building, and how we can think about how this fits into our overall ecosystem, climate change. So, with that being said, Declan, you want to give us an introduction of yourself and
Sure.
how you got here, and anything else that might help our viewers understand more about green building and construction, and maybe erase some of the fallacies that go along with that too, because I'm sure there are some things that people have a perception of that may be
Absolutely.
false that you could probably clear up for us today.
Sure, yeah. So I'm Declan Keefe, work with a company called Tailor, where we tailor places, and we've been in business for 4.5, 5 years now, and from the very beginning we were thinking about questioning how buildings are built, and along with that questioning we said, well, what's wasteful about building buildings? And there's a few things you can look at. One is the materials you use, but the other one, which we focus a lot on, is the amount of energy it takes to actually run the building, operate it. And so through many different methods, but for us it typically involves super insulating the house, making an airtight building, improving the windows that you use, orienting it to the sun, and making sure that we capture all of the heat that's already produced for us naturally, which comes from the sun, its rays itself, and also comes from internal heat gains, which is your body heat. You know, we're all at warmer temperature than we typically set our houses, which means we're a heating system. And when you turn on the stove to cook something, that's a heating system. And so if we produce buildings that capture all of that heat that's already being produced just in the way we live, what we can start doing is thinking about getting rid of our heating systems altogether and really utilizing this, which in most cases is just sort of lost energy.
These natural thermal systems that we can use to heat our home.
Right.
That's great. So what are some of the myths that you can kind of challenge or maybe open us up to here so that we have a better understanding of, or maybe can remove some of those myths?
Sure. I think one of the big myths is that it's not an approachable process when you're building a house, or it's too expensive, or it's too complicated. And one thing that we're really trying to do as a company is create methods of construction and design also that we don't have to go through the complex method of getting there. So often when you start talking about sustainable design, there's huge long checklists, or there's really complicated energy modeling, and we know all of that stuff, and we've done it. And what we're trying to do now is create a series of rules of thumb or processes that we can put into place simply without it taking a long time, without it being expensive. And on every project we keep getting the cost down lower and lower, so that what our ultimate goal is to be able to produce these homes that have close to between 80 and 90% less energy use.
Wow.
For the exact same cost as a home.
Interesting.
So that's our goal, and we're actually getting pretty close.
So you're really getting better at kind of innovating through practice, as opposed to just saying how do we use more technology, which is usually the case. Products and things have to get improved, which I'm sure is happening also.
Mm-hmm.
But you're also understanding more about the existing framework for construction and changing some of that framework so that it's more efficient.
Absolutely, and the particular standard that we use as a basis for thinking about this is called Passive House. And the Passive House standard was actually developed in Germany and came over back to the US in, I don't know, about 10 years ago or so. And the original concepts behind Passive House actually were developed here in the US back in the early 70s. And then when oil prices went back down in the early 80s, we forgot about all of it. And it went over to Germany while they kept working on it and perfected the standard, produced a program called the Passive House Planning Package, which is an energy modeling software to determine how well the house is going to perform before you've even built it. And so I'm trained in a Passive House consultant, and we're building certified homes, but what we're trying to do is, that's still a very complicated, intricate model. How do we take these concepts, and if you're working in a certain region, you can learn how a building's going to perform. And we're trying to take the modern day sort of built form,
Okay.
as opposed to the modern day technological advancements,
Right.
like solar panels and more complicated mechanical systems. Say those may be useful,
Right.
and we should think about them as tools for getting our buildings to net zero,
Right.
no energy at all, or to be producing more energy than we're using.
So that you
But
can
we
sell
should
back.
right. But we should first be creating a building that doesn't need much energy. So it's really the concept of conservation first and production second.
Oh, that's great. So tell us a little bit about how you got involved and kind of your background relative to construction or maybe development or planning, whatever it might be.
Sure.
How long have you kind of been in touch with this field?
I've been 6 or 7 years or so. I actually came at it from an art background, focused on how do we make change happen just around the world, and realized to me the thing that I felt strong about was climate change and the issues that we're causing as people to our whole world. I mean, that's a pretty big concept, and so I got into it and got really excited about the science of it, because how do you start to prove what it is you're trying to argue?
Right.
And the art world brought me to the architecture world, and the architecture world brought me to the science world, and I knew all along that I needed to be involved hands-on with whatever it was. And so Tailor is actually a design company and a construction company, and so we're doing both processes. So one person, I like to say, we swing the hammer and the pencil. So we get out there and we're the ones building the project, and we're also the ones designing it, which allows us to really think about these concepts of conservation and how do we change what the wall is actually built out of,
Right.
as opposed to just
Seeing the wall or building the wall, right? Because from what you're telling me, and this is really interesting, you're threaded throughout the entire project. I mean, you are part of the fabric as you think about the design and the construction. In order to really think about change, and it's just like any individual going through a corporate organization, you learn a lot more about that organization if you start from the bottom and work your way to the top. Here at Tailor, you found a way to design and construct that puts you in the same methodology of starting from the beginning and working it all the way through to the end. So
Absolutely.
that's really fantastic.
And we think of it as the model just like a tailor. So the tailor of a suit would do the same thing. They come in, and so we're tailoring places as opposed to suits.
That's where the name comes from.
That's right.
Very clever. Well, thank you very much for your
Absolutely.
time,
Thank you.
and I'm sure we'll talk to you again.
All right.
It's great. Thanks.